Welcome to Timberborn and the settlement of the Steeltide. We're pretty early in the game, it's just on cycle 10. We're playing on the terraces map on hard mode, and we just finished unlocking metal blocks. In this video, we're going to be using those metal blocks to double the size of our main supply of water, solve our food crisis, as well as start to expand down into the lower valley. Like I mentioned, we're just coming off the last episode where we unlocked metal blocks, and that's going to start unlocking a lot of new options for us. Problem is, we're kind of constrained by our population size. So this episode, I really want to start expanding the size of our colony, expanding what we can do. And that's going to come with expanding this water. Because now that we can finally do that with the sluice gates, we're going to have that option to start building this higher and higher. Right now, we're in the wet season. And these usually only last about 6 days for me on hard mode. I'm seeing that we're still not keeping up with our water. So we should probably start by putting in one more water tank. The other thing I'm noticing is that our food supply is starting to inch downward. We're actually eating into our berry supply, which usually the beavers don't prefer. We have a lot of cassava, but they're just not being refined quickly enough. And I'm guessing right here that kohlrabi is going to be being eaten farm to mouth. So let's temporarily get some workers getting more of those berries. And then let's find a way to expand our farmland. First thing I'm thinking, we've got all this space down here. So I think I'm going to put one extra farm kind of down in this area, put some stairs down, and that's going to give us access to, another reliable source of kohlrabi. I'm going to start with kohlrabi for now because it's quick and doesn't need to be refined. The other opportunity I'm looking at is I think we've got way more berries than we need. And I could use more of this farmland a little bit more efficiently. So I'm thinking is if I made a road over this way, I could use the forester to plant berries kind of in this area and then convert all of this to food. So potentially having another kind of farmhouse just like that would give me coverage everywhere I need here. And then the forester should be able to make those blueberries. Once this is going, I can see how it is because I really only need those berries for the breeding pod. So that should be good. To make sure that these don't get starved to being built, I'm also going to make everything up on our dam kind of lower priority. I just want this being worked on in the background. The other thing we can look at food-wise is getting another fermenter in here, because we do have a lot of cassava. We're just not being able to, manufacture it enough for people to eat it. And I left just enough space to put one right there. And I'm thinking to actually power it, we're going to need another compact water wheel that we could fit right here. And look at that, our next drought is going to be a bad tide. As long as it's not a super long bad tide, this is actually good for us. Because one of the things we struggle with right now is power. And for example, you noticed I made this whole segment down here to eventually put in kind of a large power wheel. And the reason I didn't actually install it yet, even though everything is wired for it, is our wet seasons are so short that we end up with basically a dry riverbed all the time. But in a bad tide situation, this river is still going to be flowing. So if we can get those power wheels in for the bad tide, that means I can start turning off these, manual power wheels. So we can get all those beavers back working somewhere else. Now, we are not going to finish this extra dam before that bad tide hits. I will start queuing up some of this construction on low priority though. So we'll just tear off some of the roads. And I'll just put levees basically all the way down here. The next thing we should be looking out for is our water supply. You can see our population has been slowly inching up to around a little bit over 40. So for like a 16-day drought, I think that means we need close to 1,500 water if we're just going off of stored tanks altogether. Ideally, I'd start using a large tank, but we don't have enough metal blocks. So I'm going to put one more medium tank in here. Thankfully, we've got a lot of planks and gears stockpiled, so that doesn't take much time. This farm finished too. I think we can start converting more of that over to farmland. So let's tear out some of these berries. I don't think that's quite enough, so maybe I'll reserve a little bit here for some more. This is the last night before that bad tide hits, and I think it's time to start raising our dams to store as much water as we can. Everything is gonna just slightly overflow. And with everything kind of messily filled to the brim, that's gonna be enough. And the bad tide has started, and surprisingly not bad at all, at only 13 days. So our trees up here are probably going to die. This stuff is going to evaporate pretty quickly. What I will do, though, now that we have the bad tide for 12, 13 days, it's going to be worth it to put in that large water wheel. 270 horsepower, that's going to be enough to power this smelter on its own. Now that all this field has been pulled out, I think what I'm going to do is actually mix up some of our new food. I'm going to do a mixture of soybeans as well as canola. And I think these need to be combined. The canola goes to canola oil. That can then be combined with the soybeans to get, fermented soybeans. I haven't played Iron Teeth enough to know kind of the right ratios for that, so we're going to start with that to begin with. And both of these will need to be stored someplace, so I think I'm going to put down 2 other medium warehouses. I kind of stacked these so I could keep going vertical. That's exactly what we're going to do. Actually, now that I look at this, I kind of stacked this incorrectly. I should have moved this small warehouse, which isn't being used, by the way. I'm going to shift this over, and then I'm going to put that small warehouse back over here for the fermented cassava. And with our tanks looking pretty full, I'm going to pause most of our pumps so we can get those beavers back. Save the rest of that water over for the fields. Now, it's been a couple days and our large water wheel finally finished. And you can see that is delivering over 657 horsepower. That is more than enough to power this smelter. And so you can see what I've done is I've taken out our large power wheel, shifted it over, and put in another smelter. Moving over to the rest of the colony, you'll see that we finished our storage up here. So we got a place for canola seeds and soybeans, but we still have a few more days before those are going to be ready. Now, one of the things that we do need to do is create a way to convert those canola seeds over into oil. Oil is made at the oil press, and one of the things we're going to be caught by is that this requires power. Really going to limit us to building where this power area is. Now, what I'm thinking I could do is take advantage of one of the new vertical power shaft to basically build this right here to connect to our existing power system. So I'm thinking we'll throw in those platforms, throw an upward power shaft, and then the oil press will fit right there. Next, we need a place to actually put the oil that we're going to press. For that, I'm thinking another medium tank would be fine. We'll stockpile a lot of oil. Space is really tight here. I'm going to see if I can get away with this. I'm just going to put some more platforms down and kind of build this water tank or this oil tank just on the edge of the mountain. It's not pretty, but I think that will do for now until we're rich enough that we can afford to start landscaping and making platforms and all sorts of crazy stuff. Finally, we're going to need a place to actually fry those soybeans. I'm going to throw in that fermenter right on the edge here. That should get power through the oil press. This is shaping up to be a pretty busy intersection. I wonder if I could get a shrub on that corner just to get that perk. And then I'm going to do the same down here, places where the beavers are coming and going often. I'll put one by their house too. And I see 10 beavers are without beds, so I'll throw in one more barracks. This is looking pretty good. I think that gives us an extra source of food. We've got more food available here. Our kohlrabies are finally starting to come to fruition. We should probably put another farmhouse down here at some point, but I don't yet have the population for it. I think once we have a higher amount of water in this dam, maybe get it up one more layer, that's when I'm going to start increasing our population some more. I will say, one of the really nice thing about the sluice gates, you don't really have to pay attention to them. Like normally on the droughts, I would constantly have to go back over here to these floodgates and open and close them just to make sure that this was at the right level. I've just been able to ignore all of that, and it's perfectly kept it at 0.9 the entire drought. The only downside I find with that is it's easy to forget how much water you have up in your upper dam. So you can see in this case, we're almost down to equal level with the downstream flow. So there's no extra. Our build queue is basically done at this point. So one of the things I'd like to do, now that I see that we've got 42 metal blocks, I think it's time to start replacing these floodgates with sluice gates. Now, I can't do this one until this bad tide is over, but since these are open at full blast anyways, I can delete them right now and then place in 2 more. Now, the other thing I need to be cautious of, as soon as the beavers build these, they're going to start being active and restricting the flow. So I need to configure these that they are open when the water is contaminated. So I think what I'm going to do is say that they're always open and they will close when the water is below a certain level of contamination. So I think this is the one that we want. So I think that's right. I think this is open. Yeah, it says this is open. Yes, that works perfectly. With everything else kind of taken care of and enough metal blocks in the queue, it's time to start finishing up the second layer. So we've got it all boosted up to regular priority. We're just going to get our builders working on that. And that is it for the bad tide. I had it on fast speed, so we suddenly had a big rush of water. Hopefully that's diluted enough. But you can see what happened is as soon as this reached pure enough water, these closed just as we wanted it to. So with the wet season here, this is going to be a perfect time to replace these with sluice gates. We'll make a set of platforms there, and then our gates are basically going to be at this lowest level right there. I'm going to do the opposite of basically what we have over here. So as soon as the contamination gets above 20%, they're going to go ahead and close. and they're just otherwise always going to be open. So with all those down, we'll then just even everything up, and then I want to make sure those are done quickly, just in case we get another bad tide coming. And before I forget, let's get our pumps running again too. Now you can see that our food over here, our canola and our soybeans, they started to become mature. And we have our very beginnings of some canola oil coming in. And it looks like our first starts of our fermented soybeans. In fact, maybe I'll put a small warehouse right up here for some extra. And I noticed I also needed to start fiddling with these a little bit. So one of the downsides with this gate is if I have downstream gates that are lower, the upstream gate is never going to close. For example, I had this downstream height set to 70 just as I was draining everything. And that meant my upstream sluice gate never closed. So all the water in this upper lake was basically just being passed through, and I wasn't retaining anything. Since we have such a short wet season, I think the other thing I'm going to do is temporarily build another builder's hut and rush some, support builders. Because we're day 4 on the wet season, and usually that means the drought's only 3 days away. Well, at least it's not a bad tide. That's all I care about for here. With those 4 extra workers, we'll see how much we can get done in 3 days. Well, this is the last day of the drought, and I don't think we're going to make it. Now, you can see the water levels are a little bit low. And that's because temporarily, while I try to figure out how to get water flowing down through this river at a good pace, I'm using these extra gates as kind of just excess spillway. So tonight, once we get close to the end of the night, I'll close these up and top off the dam. It is going to be pretty tight to actually finish this, though. I don't think that we're going to be able to do it. We will definitely have it ready for the next drought, though. Now, the nice thing is as we get closer to this tail end here, the beavers can build these concurrently, right? Like, they don't have to do the long walk to get there. They can build everything from the ground. Really, I think what I should do to get this moving is have a spillway kind of up here, just to let excess water out of this dam in the direction that I want it to flow. So close. We almost got that, which would have been great, especially since this is a 17-day drought. We did stockpile all the water we could, though, so the good news is we don't really need a lot of this water to keep the beavers going. I do see a growing problem, though, over here, and that's that I've got a lot of injured beavers, and I'm guessing that's coming from them working over in the smelter, and I don't have enough medical beds. So let's put down a few medical beds to address that. And in fact, with so many injured beavers, we may actually need some even more extra beds. Okay, that's taken care of. Let's pause some of these. I want all that water being reserved for the crops now. So a couple days into the drought, and we just finished our dam. Now, I think with that done, I'm going to take our temporary builder hut, pause it so we can get people reassigned back into the world. Otherwise, we are looking okay, I think. At a 16-day drought, we have enough water in our stockpile here to just feed all the beavers. So whatever water is left in this dam just has to survive paying for the crops. And we have a fairly good supply of food. Everything is roughly stockpiled there. For the builders that we have left, I'm just going to get them working on filling this up one more layer again. We're just going to repeat this process. I'm also going to have a pity on the beavers, I think. I haven't been very nice giving them things to do. A campfire is free, it's cheap, and would probably boost some of our happiness if I put a couple of those in. Same with this scratcher. It's cheap too. We could probably fit a couple of these in here as well. And I think, can I put platforms on top of those? I can, so that's fine. I'm kind of saving some of this space to have stairs going up so I can build a second layer, but that's fine. I can put two scratchers there. They'll work just fine. We're about a third of the way through our drought, and things are looking okay, if only a little bit short of water. So we're have 1.5 layers left on water. We are making progress on our next layer of the dam. So this would be almost 2 more layers of the dam in one video. Water, we're still good for the rest of the drought. At 9 days, that should be more than enough. One thing I would like to start doing is upping our population. So we're at a population of a little bit over 40. I'd like to start bumping that up to 50, especially as we start getting more and more water available. Because I want to unlock more beavers for more builders. And you can see on our dam side, what I'm trying to do is basically build it outward from multiple directions. With only 4 builders, that still does take a long time, even though they can build everything in parallel. So the sooner we increase our population, the easier it's going to be to build these mega projects. You can also see down here, I did have to finish building this large power wheel so that we could afford some of our manufacturing. Because as expected, during the dry season, our water wheels are basically worthless. So we're coming to the tail end of this drought with only 2 days to go. You can see our water is probably going to make it, especially since it's all going to the crops. We did basically use almost all our barrels, so we're going to have to start pumping those in pretty soon. We are pretty close to finishing yet another layer on this dam though. And you can see I'm doing a few things at the front here. The first thing I did is you can see I put another sluice gate all the way down at the bottom here. The other thing I'm doing is I'm going to stock regular dams at the top. And these are gonna limit how much I can maximize the water in this dam. But the idea is that these are gonna be a spillway. When the water of the dam gets too high, these are gonna overflow in the direction of the river. That way I stop having to manually open these gates in the back. That's it for the drought. We didn't finish the second layer, but we're pretty close to it. So I think we're going to finish that in just a couple of days. We did almost take all of the water available. So you can see I've already preemptively got the pumps going again. We ended up with roughly half of the available water left in here. So overall, handled well. Probably could have handled it better if we had more supply. I am going to hurry up and get the last of these done though. And with those last few places built, I think we're ready to turn off these temporary things. Those can go back to auto for our bad tide diversion system. And this is all going to start filling up. So this water should now go into the main holding tank. And this is going to rise all the way up to the top until I think our spillway takes effect. And there we go. Bit of flooding. I think that should evaporate quickly as this reaches equilibrium, and like that. Compared to the last drought, we've just kind of significantly increased the amount of water we've got. We only had it up to roughly here, I think, when the last drought started, because we didn't even have this layer finished, and then we finished this layer on top of that. So that should put us in a pretty good position. As our population grows too, these sets of medium tanks are just exactly how much we need. I would like to kind of jump that and get a little bit more to secure it. Basically what we could do is jump up to a large tank, and that's going to be equivalent to 4 of these medium ones. So more or less we're going to double the amount of water we could store. We do have a problem with where to put this thing. At a 3x3 it's pretty big. I was kind of keeping this for other storage, so I'm not sure if I want to put it there. It's also a long walk from these pumps. Now what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to start replacing a couple of these medium tanks. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to shift this farmhouse over a bit. I'm going to tear out these, destroy the farmhouse, place the farmhouse here, and I'm going to tear out all 3 of these and replace them with the large tanks. This is going to be a big investment for us. This is basically going to take a lot of our spare resources, but I will like the extra water. And we're going to build one and then the other. That way we can start populating with water while we build the next. I want to do that before the wet season ends. Speaking of which, we only have 3 days before that ends. Luckily the planks are right near, so those are going to be easy to get. The only long walk is to get the metal blocks. They got to walk all the way down here. But as soon as that's done, that only takes 30. The gears and the planks are really close, so this should take a really short time to build. There we go. Only took 1 day. The rest of the time can then be spent by these pumps to fill it up. And in fact, if they finish that in time, I'm going to put down another pumping station. A 19-day drought. That's going to be our longest drought yet. Now, good and bad. We do have all this extra water going into this one. What we don't have, however, is a full tank of water over here. Because as you can see, I only got 151 water in this one before all of this dried up. Now, what I could do, I do have all these pumps here. They're going to continue to get some of this water. I never use this water down here. I think I'm going to make some pumps down here to get water out of this and fill it up here. For example, if I were to stack a few pumps over here, I think that would be fine. And in fact, I could even get away with an extra warehouse there instead of building platforms. Now, what I'm thinking is there any faster way to get these people up to the storage tanks? This is kind of a long walk. They've got to go all the way back here and up and around again. Well, if I had dynamite, I could probably do something about it. But for now, I'm just going to live with it. So I'm just going to shift all of these around. We're going to get another medium warehouse there, another warehouse there, and then we have a space for the stairs down there. We can just use this for extra kohlrabi. I'm going to keep just these 4 going through the dry season. That way they're only drawing from this downriver kind of dam. And speaking of it being a walk, that's going to bring me to something else that we can do. I haven't built a hauling post yet. I'm going to throw in one of those, and I'm going to make it just kind of a low priority thing. The haulers could basically take stuff from here when we get more free workers available, which we should as our population slowly inches up higher. The next thing on my mind is increasing our population. We've got a lot of water. We've got a good supply of food plus unprocessed food. So I'll plop down another. That should get us up to around 60 beavers. Next, we have a lot of loggers that are not working. I'm going to expand more of our log pile here just to keep people busy. I'm going to keep it relatively simple for now. I'm just going to keep it like that. And that's going to give us the option to put more things underneath here, as well as making a 3rd story if I need to. Similarly, with our increase in population, we should probably put in yet another house, just like that. Next up, we've got another layer coming into the dam, that's fine. However, I also want to make progress with dynamite. Dynamite's going to be a big thing as we start to expand. Dynamite needs bad water. Only reliable source of bad water is over here. So we need a way to get down over to this area. Probably the cheapest way to get bad water. Like long term, we're going to have to put some sort of dam structure here to stockpile it so we can have some to pump out during the dry season. But for now, I wonder if we could get away with just building something on the edge here. For that, I think I'm going to tear out these trees, get the logger to pull them out, and we're just going to continue that stairs all the way down. And with those cut, then we can just make a really long staircase all the way down. We'll unlock the deep water pump, and then I think we could just stack them right here. Probably we only need 1 medium tank. Oh, and can't forget that road. Got 9 days left in this drought, and you can see that these pumps have been very busy. In fact, we've almost pumped out most of the water in here. Up at our main dam, we still have at least a little bit over 3 levels, so that's fine. The one thing that I don't like is these pumps, even though they're going all the time, we waste all this time carting it up here. So you can see that our large tank is slowly falling. We're not actually putting it in as quickly as we're taking out. Now with a population of around 50 beavers, I'm thinking we need 1,100 water, give or take, to survive 9 more days. So we're definitely going to have to start pumping using this water to get into tanks. Probably this is going to be the last day that these pumps are going to be active. I'm going to have to pause them and then start pumping out of the main supply again. Speaking of which, these guys are paused now. That's probably going to kill all this food. This is going to remain. That's going to be fine, but these are going to die off. That's fine. We've got a ton of stockpiled food already. I'm going to resume these pumps up here, though. At least 4 of them. And you can see while I'm doing that, I do have the construction over here. We got the bad water pump ready to go. We're going to pause having it actually do anything for now until this dry season is over. And you can see that I'm still continuing to grow our next 2 layers on our dam. So this is just kind of background construction going on. Otherwise, things are looking pretty good. I do think we could have used more soybeans. This canola has been perfect. We didn't really need a lot of canola. We already got a good 300 stockpile with that. We could use more soybean. So given that we have so much other kohlrabi, eventually I'm going to probably tear out some of this and convert it back over to more soybeans. We're in a pretty good shape for food. It's really water I want to get increased. And as we make progress on this, I'm actually noticing that we've almost maxed out our metal blocks. Now metal blocks are one that I always want more coming in, because that is such a vital resource for all those new buildings. So I'm going to put down another storage over here to make sure we always have space for more, especially because I have a lot of plans for metal blocks coming up. I want to use those 3D buildings to start making aqueducts. 2 days left in the drought. We're down to our last level of water. So I've paused all the pumps. We've got enough that we can survive on. We're just going to kind of get over the finish line with this. That brings us to the end of the drought. Still water left. All those pumps are going to come back online, and we're going to fill up all of these. And these guys have been busy. You can see that I've got basically another 2 layers coming in on this dam. Now, what I'm thinking for this dam long term, I really would like more space. You can see that I've been kind of constrained by the edge of this mountain. As we unlock more research, I'd like to start unlocking some of these overhangs. And so what I'm thinking is if I could unlock some of these, I could build an extension to this dam. Basically, instead of it following this, I could have it hang over the river and connect almost all the way over here. And that gives me the option of starting to green up here, because that's easy access. So that is my goal. These overhangs do take a lot of research, but I have been stockpiling our research with that goal in mind. But if I had platforms down there, I could, with a combination of stuff, kind of start branching this over. Now, while I've got the wet season here, this bad tide's going to start flooding down soon, so I can get this deep water pump going. Now, with our increased beavers, maybe we'll get lucky and we might actually be able to finish this extra layer. I don't know. It's going to be tight. I do have 8 builders going now, so that is an improvement. And this is highly paralyzed work, so that should be in our favor. Hey, and at 3 days to go, we've got our next drought going in. I don't know if we're going to make it to finish this part. I'm going to assume that this next one's going to be about 20 days, if the trend is continuing. For 20 days, we're going to need around 2,600 water. So I would really like to see as much as we can of this second large tank done. I wouldn't mind if we could get the second row of this done as well, but it's looking like that might be a little bit of a stretch. Maybe if we threw in another set of builders, we might be able to get a little bit more in. The part I'm worried about the most is getting this part done, because I think we're going to have to replace these dams with something else, so we're going to have to lose a little bit of water temporarily. This part, since it's just a regular drought, I don't need to fill this part in just yet, because that's only really needed to separate bad water for the bad tide. Could probably skimp some building here. If I just skipped here to build these last 4, that would probably finish that. I need to remove these temporarily so I can build on top of them. Otherwise, having water higher than that's not going to really matter, because it's just going to drain out. I'm going to rush sluice gates here. So I can start these open for now to handle the flooding, but then I can continue building up above them. You know, 1 day to go, I think we're just gonna make it. We've got the last leveling dam going here. Everything else has been done, because these can be diagonal, that's fine. We can finish that up later. So we just need this and another set of blocks. Okay, as soon as I get that first one done, I can start closing these. That's gonna start building up water in the back. Ooh, just made it with 0.4 days. So that should give enough time for this to mostly fill, I think. You know, I'm surprised that we're not capturing more water. Oh, you know what it is? We're leaking water at the end here. So like water is flowing, so our bottom sluice gate isn't closing. Yeah, that's causing us not to capture as much water as we could have here. And like I thought, we've got 20 days. So that's the long one. If we could get this other large tank filled, that's going to be okay. And it's unfortunate, we didn't quite get this filled all the way. I do think this dam is basically as high as we're going to get for a while, because we're going to expand the other way. It is so sad, though. You can see we only got it really halfway. And at 20 days, we are going to cut it pretty close. We've got roughly 4 levels of water in there, plus all the water down here. But I think that's going to be a good stopping point for us. That's going to be the challenge. Can we get through an 18-day drought with the water that we've got here? As always, I hope you enjoy these videos, and I hope to catch you next time.